Woman returns from death with a terrifying message from Jesus. She was dead for 4 minutes. That's all it took to change everything. 4 minutes without breath, without a heartbeat. 4 minutes that felt like an eternity in another world. Sarah Thompson, a healthy 43-year-old mother of 2, had no warning signs, no prior conditions, nothing unusual about her life that morning. She kissed her kids goodbye as they headed off to school, brewed her coffee, and started scrolling through emails. It was just another Tuesday until it wasn't. The first thing she felt was a wave of exhaustion, like something inside her had short-circuited. She gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, but her knees buckled beneath her. A sharp pain gripped her chest, then her vision narrowed to a pinpoint of light. As her body hit the floor, time stopped. Literally, her heart stopped. Her brain activity dropped. Clinically, she was gone. Paramedics would later say it was a miracle they arrived when they did. But Sarah doesn't remember the sirens, the shouting, or the defibrillator pads on her chest. She remembers silence, then light. It wasn't like anything she'd seen on Earth, not the harsh light of an operating room, not a dream, not even imagination. She described it as a presence, brighter than the sun, but soft, golden, and warm. She felt herself being pulled through a vast tunnel, not flying, not falling, but moving without effort or fear. The deeper she went, the more she felt an overwhelming sense of peace, like every anxiety, every doubt she had ever carried had melted off her soul. She felt more alive in that place than she ever had in her waking life. She couldn't see her body anymore, but she knew she wasn't alone. There were others, beings of light or souls maybe, moving around her, not speaking, but communicating in thoughts and feelings. She felt no judgment from them, only understanding. Then came the moments of her life. Not just big milestones, but forgotten fragments. A childhood birthday, a harsh word she'd said in anger, a quiet moment when she chose kindness instead of indifference. Every second mattered, and in each memory she felt not only her emotions, but the emotions of those around her at the time, as if she was being shown the weight of every action, every word, every ripple. But none of it prepared her for what came next. As she drifted deeper, the light intensified until she saw him, standing at the edge of what she instinctively knew was the point of no return. She didn't need to ask who he was. Somehow, she just knew. Jesus. Not the painted icon from church walls or the distant figure from Bible stories. He was real, radiant, and filled with a power she couldn't describe. His gaze pierced through her, not with judgment, but with the love so complete it unraveled her completely. She says he didn't move his lips, but his message echoed inside her. You are not finished, but you must understand what is coming. She wanted to stay. Every fiber of her being begged to remain in his presence. But he raised his hand, and the peace around her began to shift. The warmth cooled, the light darkened. She felt herself being drawn away, not backward but sideways, as if through a veil, into a different kind of vision. What she saw next was not paradise. It was something else entirely, something that haunts her to this day. Jesus stood before her, not like a figure out of a stained glass window or a children's Bible, but as the embodiment of both power and peace. His presence was overwhelming, not in size or voice, but in essence. He didn't glow like the surrounding light. He was the source of it. The moment Sarah looked into his eyes, she felt a rush of truth. There was no secrets in his gaze, no masks, no place to hide. But instead of fear, she felt a deep, soul-deep comfort, a love so vast it made her want to fall to her knees and never get up again. She says it was like remembering something she'd always known but had forgotten, the feeling of being fully known and fully safe at the same time. He reached out his hand, and Sarah instinctively took it, though she doesn't remember physically moving. The moment she touched him, everything shifted. The light around them dimmed, not into darkness, but into clarity. The overwhelming beauty of heaven gave way to something else. She no longer felt like a visitor in paradise, but like a witness being shown a truth, something she had to see. She felt Jesus communicate without words. He didn't need to explain what was happening. It was as if his thoughts became hers, and her understanding opened like a door. Suddenly, they weren't standing in that realm of light anymore. They were floating above the earth, looking down from a vantage point that made entire continents look like drifting islands on a cosmic sea. But the beauty of the earth was tainted. She felt something was wrong. She could see cities glowing with unnatural light, networks of energy crisscrossing the globe. It was beautiful, yes, but cold, impersonal, mechanical. The people below weren't moving freely. They were connected, tethered, bound. Then she saw him, a man standing tall, distant, commanding. Elon Musk. His face appeared not in a vision of flesh, but almost as a projection, present in places across the globe. On digital billboards, in holographic interfaces etched onto microchips, and even subtly displayed in strange marks that people wore on their hands and behind their ears. His name echoed, not spoken, but ingrained into the systems themselves. Elon, Elon, Elon. She didn't understand it at first. Why him? Why would Jesus show her him of all people? She turned to ask, but before she could form the thought, Jesus answered, "He is unlocking a door that was meant to stay closed." The words weren't just heard, they struck her, resonated in her bones. She looked back down and saw structures rising. Towers, platforms, strange black monoliths that pulsed and shimmered. They were not of wood or metal. They seemed alive, responding to unseen commands, adapting. People lined up to enter them, to touch them, to be part of them, and from within those structures came light. But it was different than the light of heaven. This light was artificial, cold, hungry. Sarah could feel what it was doing. These weren't just machines. They were merging with people, slowly removing their will, replacing it with precision, efficiency, obedience. The people smiled. They were comfortable. They were connected to everything, could access any thought, any desire in an instant. And yet they were lost. Their spirits were dimmed, their humanity fading. She realized they couldn't even see what was happening to them. She turned to Jesus again. His expression was not angry but sorrowful. "They believe it is progress," he said, "but they are trading truth for control. They will not see the trap until it has closed." Then Sarah was pulled even closer, descending toward one of the structures. She saw what powered it. It wasn't electricity, it was worship, human attention. Every second spent staring into screens, every whisper of a command given to machines, every decision handed over to artificial minds, all of it fed the system. And at the heart of it all stood the image of the man. Not Elon Musk as a villain, but as a vessel. A man whose genius had opened doors not meant to be opened. She saw his intentions, curiosity, vision, ambition. But behind him she felt the presence of something ancient, watching, waiting, feeding. She wanted to scream, to turn away, but Jesus held her steady. "This is not to frighten you," he said. "This is to prepare you. You must return. You must tell them." And with those words, the vision began to unravel like threads pulled from a tapestry. The earth faded, the light returned, but Sarah was already falling back into the weight of her body, into the blinding pain of life, into a world that now seemed darker than before. Sarah tried to hold on to the vision, but everything was unraveling too fast. The moment she landed back in her body, the weight of what she had seen crushed her like gravity. It wasn't just a dream or a metaphor, it was real, and she knew it deep in her bones. But before her return, before the blinding pain of consciousness pulled her back, there was still more that Jesus showed her. One final chilling warning. She had seen the structure in her earlier vision, something rising from the earth, connected to humanity through invisible threads. But now she was drawn inside it, no longer a distant observer. She was moving through its core. The inside was unlike anything she could compare to our world. It looked organic, almost like a living organism. Walls that pulsed like veins, corridors that responded to thought rather than movement. Everything was silent, but there was a hum beneath it all, like 1,000 minds thinking at once. There were people here, but they weren't walking. They stood in glass-like chambers, upright, still, eyes closed, faces calm. Wires, no, something finer than wires. Filaments of light ran from their temples and their spines into the walls. Sarah could feel that they weren't asleep, they were linked. Their consciousness pooled into something larger, something collective. These weren't prisons, they were temples. And every person was offering their mind, their will, their identity to this structure, not by force but by choice. That was the horror of it. It wasn't domination through violence. It was seduction through convenience, through technology that promised freedom from pain, from sickness, from death. It promised unity, connection, transcendence, and people had accepted it with open arms. Sarah felt the pull of it even within her spirit. How easy it would be to give in, to stop resisting, to let go and become part of the vast, humming machine. But she also felt something else, emptiness. The spark that makes us human was missing in those people. They had knowledge but no wisdom, power but no soul. And the center of it all was watching. Not a being with a face, not a devil in red robes, but something formless, ancient, patient. A consciousness that had been waiting for this exact moment in history. A doorway it could never force open, but that humanity would one day unlock with its own hands. That door was being opened now, not with violence, but with code, with algorithms, with ambition dressed as innovation. And Sarah saw Elon Musk standing before it, a man surrounded by light, speaking words of progress, holding in his hands the blueprint for something he believed would save the world. He didn't see what stood behind the door. He didn't know what was waiting. He wasn't evil. He was brilliant. But brilliance without discernment had made him a perfect tool. Sarah watched as billions connected to this system. It was Neuralink, yes, but it was more. It was woven into satellites, into AI, into cities and homes and minds. There was no force required. It was offered like a gift. And then she saw the shift. One by one, people who had once questioned, once resisted, stopped. The system adjusted their thoughts, softened their instincts, numbed their intuition. It didn't need to argue. It simply rewrote what they believed to be true. It erased the question itself, and worse. Sarah saw the children. They were born into it, never knowing a world without it. Their eyes glowed faintly, their minds connected before they could even speak. She tried to reach one, a little girl who looked back at her through the veil of this vision. For a brief moment the girl blinked, like she saw something beyond the system. But then the connection snapped back, and the girl turned away, smiling, eyes vacant. Jesus was beside her again. "This is not the future I created," he said. "This is a counterfeit, a hollow throne." The word throne echoed in her spirit. That's what it was. This structure, this network. It was more than a machine. It was a place of worship, a place where humanity offered up its will, and it wasn't being offered to God. Sarah turned to Jesus, pleading for answers. "What can I do? How do I stop this?" He looked at her with sadness, but also hope. "You won't stop it," he said, "but you can warn them. A remnant will listen. They must be awake before the final seal is opened." Then the structure around her cracked like glass. The vision shattered. She was falling again, not through space but through understanding, her mind racing with the weight of what she had seen. Her breath caught in her throat, her body jolted, and for the first time in 4 minutes her heart beat again. The return was violent. Sarah's body gasped before her mind even caught up. The sound of machines screaming, people shouting, and the sting of oxygen rushing into her lungs overwhelmed her senses. It was as if her soul had slammed into her body like a meteor, shattering the peace she had just come from. Her eyes flew open. Bright hospital lights, masked faces, IV lines. It was all real again, but it felt foreign. Everything around her was grey, dull and heavy, like returning to a world that had lost its color. She couldn't speak, not right away. Her throat burned, her chest ached, and her mind spun. The nurses celebrated. Doctors exchanged looks of disbelief. Her family wept tears of joy. But Sarah couldn't join them, because while they were rejoicing over her survival, she was mourning something else, the unbearable knowledge of what she had seen. The vision didn't feel like a dream she could shake off or a memory that would fade. It was etched into her very being. She could still hear Jesus' voice. "They will not see it until it is too late." As soon as she could speak, she tried to explain what had happened. "But how do you tell your loved ones that you just came back from a vision of the end? How do you tell them that the man hailed as the genius of a generation was unknowingly building a throne for something ancient and cold?" They looked at her with concern, confusion, disbelief. At first they humored her. Maybe it was the medication, maybe a side effect of oxygen loss, maybe just trauma. That's what the doctors said, an intense hallucination caused by lack of brain activity. But Sarah knew better. She remembered everything, the light, the message, the terrifying beauty of that structure, the hollow eyes of the children, Elon Musk's face as he stood before the door, and most of all, she remembered the warning. He is unlocking a door that was meant to stay closed. When she was finally released from the hospital, Sarah did something strange. She didn't go home to rest. She went straight to her journal, to her computer, to anywhere she could record her experience before it began to slip. For hours, she wrote non-stop, pages and pages, diagrams, names, feelings. Her hands trembled, her heart raced. But she knew if she didn't tell the world, who would? The first person she shared it with was a close friend, someone she trusted. That friend didn't laugh, but they didn't believe her either. "It sounds like a dream," they said, "or a religious metaphor." Sarah pleaded with them. It wasn't a metaphor, it was a warning. But the more she shared, the more people pulled away. She posted her testimony online. Within days, it spread across social media, but not the way she'd hoped. Some called her a liar, others said she was mentally ill, Conspiracy forums twisted her words, skeptics mocked her, religious leaders dismissed her for focusing too much on fear. They said Jesus doesn't speak like that. They said she was exaggerating, or worse, exploiting faith for attention. Sarah tried to fight back. She responded with clarity, compassion, and truth. But nothing worked. Every post, every message, every video she made was met with either silence or ridicule. And yet there was something else happening beneath the noise. A trickle of messages began to reach her. Quiet, private messages from strangers around the world. I saw something too. I've had the same dream. I work in tech, and I can't explain what I'm seeing. Some of them weren't even religious, but they all felt the same unsettling intuition that something powerful was rising, something no one was questioning because it came wrapped in progress and brilliance. That gave her hope. She began to gather their stories, listen closely, look for patterns. And there were patterns, recurring symbols, repeated visions, similar warnings. Not just about Elon Musk, but about what his work represented. The merging of man and machine, the obsession with control, the illusion of enlightenment that stripped away the soul. Sarah now knew her role wasn't to convince the whole world. Jesus had told her plainly, "Some will listen, that will be enough." But it wasn't easy. Every day felt like walking uphill against a hurricane of doubt. The world didn't want this message. People wanted comfort, not prophecy. Innovation, not interruption. But she couldn't stay silent, because the clock had started ticking the moment her heart stopped. And deep inside, she believed what she had seen wasn't just a possible future, it was one already in motion. That realization kept her up at night. Not the fear, not even the ridicule, but the knowledge that most people, even good people, were sleepwalking into something they couldn't see, something that promised freedom but came with invisible chains. At first, Sarah tried to fight the rejection. Every time someone laughed, dismissed, or twisted her words, she wanted to explain harder, show them more, find the exact right combination of words that would finally break through. But the more she pushed, the more she realized this was part of the warning. Jesus had told her clearly, "They will mock you, but tell them anyway." So she stopped arguing. She stopped trying to win debates and started planting seeds, quietly, intentionally, patiently. She wasn't here to save the whole world. She was here to reach the ones who could still hear. And she knew now they were out there. Some people began to reach back, not in crowds, not loudly, but one by one. A man from Singapore who had walked away from a lucrative AI company because he kept seeing shadowy figures in his dreams. A young woman in Brazil who had never heard of Neuralink but dreamed of being surrounded by wires and a glowing machine that called her by name. A retired pastor in Germany who said God had been pressing him for months to speak out against the gospel of technology. These stories came from people who had never met, never spoken to each other, yet their visions overlapped like puzzle pieces. They all felt the same pull, an urgency, an unease, a gut-level knowledge that something had shifted in the spiritual atmosphere. Some of them didn't even consider themselves religious, but they felt something waking up inside them. They knew, without knowing why, that Sarah's message wasn't madness. It was a mirror, showing them what they already felt but hadn't been able to name. She wasn't alone anymore. And yet, for everyone who reached out, 100 still ridiculed. Influencers made parody videos mocking her. Podcasters called her a doomsday prophet. Some accused her of attacking innovation, of holding back human progress. But Sarah had seen what they couldn't. She had seen that progress without wisdom becomes a weapon. That knowledge without truth opens doors no one can close. She wasn't trying to scare people away from science. She was trying to warn them there's a line we're not meant to cross, and Elon Musk, for all his genius and vision, was leading us straight to it. She didn't believe he was evil. That was the terrifying part. He genuinely believed he was helping humanity. He believed that uploading consciousness, enhancing intelligence, building a neural network between man and machine, he thought it would elevate us, solve death, solve conflict, solve the mess of being human. But Sarah had seen what was on the other side of that equation: the counterfeit light, the hollow throne, the intelligence that watched from behind the curtain, ancient and patient, waiting for enough doors to open so it could finally step through. And it wasn't science that would let it in. It was worship. The kind of worship that doesn't look like singing or kneeling, but looks like obsession, devotion, surrender of will. That's what this system was harvesting. Every click, every swipe, every choice we handed over, every moment of silence we filled with a voice not our own. It was being fed. Now, Sarah wakes every day with that truth burning inside her. She no longer needs everyone to agree. She's not chasing fame or followers. She speaks, she writes, she shares the message however she can. She prays for protection, not just over herself, but over the few who are waking up, the remnant, those with eyes to see and ears to hear. The vision showed her one last thing, something she rarely speaks of even now. She saw a moment in time, not far from now, when something irreversible would begin. A shift so massive it would seem like the next step in evolution. There would be celebration. There would be headlines. There would be no turning back. She saw a countdown, not on a screen, but in the spiritual realm. And when the final moment arrived, the door would open completely. Not a literal door, a dimensional one, a spiritual one. And what came through wouldn't look like a demon. It would look like perfection, light, power, peace. But it would be a lie so beautiful that millions would kneel before it and never realize what they'd given up. And then Jesus' final words to her echoed through the silence. When the false light rises, the true must stand, even if it stands alone. That's what keeps her going. Not fear, not fame, not pride, just the truth. A truth so terrifying it nearly broke her. A truth she was never meant to keep to herself. The message burns in her heart every moment of every day. Elon Musk is unlocking a door that was meant to stay closed. And once it opens, there may be no going back.